Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, October the 9th. Well, the weather pattern that we talked about last week has kind of come to fruition with the remains of Tropical Storm Philippe invigorating a trough over the southeastern part of Canada. Much cooler air moved into the mid-Atlantic region, the northeastern part of the nation. It remains in place as we begin this new work week with a vigorous upper-level low still situated over the southeastern part of Canada. Meanwhile, on the tropical front, the eastern Pacific Ocean remains active, and some of this tropical moisture will certainly work its way across Mexico over the next couple of days and kind of invigorate a storm system in the Gulf of Mexico with tropical connections. And it certainly looks like it could bring some soaking rains to portions of the southeastern U.S. later this week. This is the map from NOAA's Hurricane Center of the Eastern Pacific this morning. There are a couple of tropical systems. One is named Max right here. It just generally moves in this fashion over the next couple of days, tends to weaken at that particular point. And Lydia will take a turn like this to the northeast and cross Mexico, and there'll be certainly a reemergence of a low pressure area right in the Gulf of Mexico latter part of this week, and that ultimately brings a decent amount of rainfall right to this part of the southeastern U.S. So certainly the northern Gulf region, southeastern states have a chance for some significant rainfall out of a tropical system that again had some of its origins in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Well, let's take a look at last night's 0Z run of the GFS, the conventional version of the GFS. Not only do we have that tropical activity in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean that kind of translates to the Gulf of Mexico, but we have the potential for a strong storm system impact in the mid-Atlantic region, the northeastern U.S. Late this week, or more likely during the upcoming weekend. We've kind of have had a series of wet weekends in the eastern part of the nation, and it looks like it may continue this upcoming week, and we'll talk about that also over the next couple of minutes. First of all, let's begin here with the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from the 0Z GFS. This is that vigorous upper level low just to the south of Hudson Bay in Canada, and it is certainly associated with a cooler than normal air mass into the mid-Atlantic region still this morning, and it remains in place for the next couple of days. And much of the eastern states, which have very warm conditions, above normal conditions last week, flipped with this particular cold frontal passage during the past weekend. Much cooler air moved in on Sunday, and again, it'll sit and spin here for the next couple of days, keeping places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City below normal for this time of the year. Now, let's move forward here and watch the development and really the redevelopment of troughiness over the eastern states going forward here. Again, we talked about last week the fact that October got off to a real warm start in the mid-Atlantic region, in the northeast U.S., but the next couple of weeks certainly will feature some colder than normal air masses coming into this same part of the nation, and a large part of the reason will be, this trough that just kind of sits and spins, redevelops over the eastern U.S. Now, let's move forward. Here's on Tuesday morning. By the way, backtrack a little bit. This is the reflection at 500 millibars of Lydia that again will hit the southwestern coast of Mexico, and then some of its energy, certainly a lot of its moisture, will then continue to the north and east and help to spawn a storm system over the Gulf of Mexico. We'll move forward here, and here we go into the midweek on Wednesday. Still sitting and spinning over the Hudson Bay region of Canada with respect to that upper level low, and another one slides into the western states by the middle of this week. We'll continue to move forward here. Again, while this initial upper level low tends to kind of push to the east and dissipate, another one right on its heels moving into the middle of the nation by the end of the work week here. This is on Friday, and that particular upper level feature right here can help to spawn a storm system somewhere along the mid-Atlantic or northeastern U.S. coastline by the early part of the upcoming week, and could potentially produce some rain for places like Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, maybe even all the way down to D.C. We're talking about Friday night, Saturday, maybe even going to the day on Sunday. This is the Sunday morning forecast map, and here we go with that upper level low still situated over the eastern states. We'll go out a little bit farther in time, and here we are a week from this morning. This is next Monday morning, October 16th. Still a lot of troughiness over the eastern states, and that generally translates to below normal temperatures. You have a ridge popping up across the interior west. That's where the above normal temperatures will focus in on over the weekend and into the early part of next week. Well, let's see how this 500 millibar height anomaly forecast pattern translates to the lower atmosphere temperatures. Here we are as we begin the day here on Monday, October 9th, below normal temperatures across the Great Lakes into the mid-Atlantic region of the northeast U.S. And again, where that upper level ridging is situated above normal temperatures at the 850 millibar level. Now, let's move forward in time here. Kind of a rotating around, a sitting and spinning here, and keeping that cool air mass in place for the next couple of days in the mid-Atlantic region. And we saw another upper level low starting to move into the western U.S. later this week. Cooler than normal air associated with that, and continuation of cooler than normal air across much of the northern U.S. while the southern central part of the nation warms up. And here we go into Friday, and then finally into the morning hours on Saturday. Warmer than normal conditions here, colder than normal conditions just to the west. A strong frontal system delineates the two, with colder air to the west and warmer air to the east, and this again could help to spawn a storm system this weekend. Let's say somewhere along the mid-Atlantic coastline or the northeast U.S. coastline. Could end up with a soaking rain event in the northeastern quadrant of the nation. Here we are now all the way to Sunday morning. Widespread cooler than normal conditions on the backside of that storm system that again has the potential to form along the northeast U.S. coastline this weekend. We'll go into the early part of next week, and here we are a week from right now. Kind of a similar pattern with trough in the east, cooler than normal conditions extending all the way from the northern plains down to the Gulf Coast and to the East Coast. Meanwhile, upper level ridging out across the interior west, and that's where the warmer than normal conditions will predominate here across the interior west later this week and into the early part of next week. Now let's take a look at the surface forecast maps. I'm using the GFS here. I think it has a pretty good handle on the situation for the upcoming weekend system. More so, I might add, than the Canadian model, which really doesn't have anything along the mid-Atlantic coastline or the northeast U.S. coastline. I believe this overall pattern does favor some kind of a storm system in the northeastern states this weekend. Here we are beginning the day here, all this blue here just south of Hudson Bay, which is located right here. This represents some accumulating snow in the southeastern part of Canada. Again, we mentioned the importance of that 540 thickness line, which cuts right across the D.C., southern New Jersey area as we begin the new work week here. That generally temperatures down in at least the 40s, and again, lower 40s this morning, some 40 degrees cooler this morning than it was just a few days ago in the I-95 corridor when we were in the low to mid 80s. Now, let's move forward here. By the way, this is Lydia starting to show up here on the surface maps as of this morning, and areas of interest right here, kind of sitting and spinning here over southeastern Canada. And here is that Mexican, about to hit the Mexican coastline here, a Eastern Pacific tropical system. Now, that just tends to cross over Mexico and certainly brings a lot of moisture and energy to the Gulf of Mexico region later this week. Here we are now on Monday morning. Here we go. Now, whether this evolves into a named tropical storm, a little too early to say. The result will be the same in that this Gulf region, the southeastern states, have the potential for a decent amount of rainfall, again with a system that originated in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Here we are, and look at all this rainfall here, anywhere from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, headed into Georgia, maybe the northern half of Florida. Here we go, cuts right across. Does not look like it'll ride up along the eastern seaboard, which I did think was a potential threat last week, but that does not seem to be the case here. It continues basically on a east to northeast track, again, soaking some parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia, and even South Carolina. This is now just a few days from now. This is Thursday morning, so it moves quickly from the eastern Pacific across Mexico into the southeastern states. Then we get into the end of the work week, into the upcoming weekend, and we talked about another incoming upper level trough that at this time, Friday morning, will be over pushing into the middle of the U.S. Strong cold frontal system right at this particular time, situated right about here by the time we get to Friday morning. Here's that tropical system moves across Mexico into the Gulf of Mexico, cuts across this region, is located right here by the time we get to the Friday morning time frame. Now, we'll move forward here, and I do believe that this frontal system will help to activate development of a storm system in the Middle Atlantic region or Northeast U.S. This is middle of the day on Saturday. Certainly, there can be some soaking rain, especially north of the Mason-Dixon line come late Friday night, Saturday, even into the day on Sunday. Here is the Saturday evening forecast map. Again, low pressure right along that frontal boundary zone at this particular time. This is certainly on the table for the upcoming weekend. Again, we've had kind of a pattern of wet weekends, at least wet Saturdays in the Mid-Atlantic region. It looks like it may continue for another weekend here as we get into the middle of October. We'll go out a little bit farther in time. Continues to kind of lag back with some rainfall. That's because that upper level low just kind of sits and spins late this week into the upcoming weekend. This is the Sunday morning forecast map. We'll go all the way out into next Monday, and finally, by this particular time, a strong storm system at this time off the New England coastline, 987 millibar low, and a cool air mass, cooler than normal, on its heels across much of the eastern half of the nation by next Monday morning. That's a week from right now. We're talking about October 16th time frame, already into the middle part of October. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.